I want to thank you for attending the Board of Education meeting of the Westerville City School District this evening. The agenda will be displayed on the screen at the front of the room, and you can also follow along if you'd like to by connecting to the district's website at wcsoh.org. I always turn the letters around, wcsoh.org. So click on the district link, then select Board of Education. You'll see board docs, and that will take you to the agenda. So feel free to do that as well. There will be two opportunities to address the board this evening if you would like to do that. The first one is on the agenda at item 7.01. That first set of public comments is only for comments that are related to items that are on the agenda for action this evening. We ask that you let us know which agenda item you are addressing. The second opportunity for public comment is on the agenda at item 14.01, and that is for comments for the general good of the order. Both sets of public comments are limited to 5 minutes per speaker, and if you do wish to speak at either set of public comments, you do need to sign up before public comment sections that you wish to partake in. With that, Mr. Griffith, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crowe. Mrs. Davidson.
Here.
Dr. French.
Here.
Mr. Villardo.
Here.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Here. Thank you. Would you please stand and join with us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on in the agenda this evening, the next thing on the agenda, item number 3, are the board meeting minutes, and this is to discuss and approve the January 27th and February 10th meetings, and February 24th as well. Are there, let me see, do we need a motion? We're still doing, we've done away with doing motions and seconds on the minutes. It's an unnecessary slowdown in the agenda that served no real purpose. With that, are there any comments, questions, suggestions, concerns about the minutes? I hear none, and I see lots of heads shaking no. We will move on. Item number 4, district highlights and recognitions. We have none this evening. Item number 5, under reports, 5.01. We do have a significant report this evening. This is a facilities update. Mr. LaRose.
Thank you. Am I on? I'm on here, okay. All right, this is actually going to talk about our facilities, primarily driven by the capital improvements plan, with showcasing some of the work we've done in the past 4 years as we enter into the 5th and final year of the current plan. But before we go there, I did want to provide an update on the general funds budget as it compares to where we were prior to the budget cuts. So the slide that you see in front of you represents the departments that I work with: maintenance, grounds, custodial, transportation, purchasing, warehouse, and also it includes utilities. And we were at 22. These are actuals. The actual expenditures for FY11 was just over 22 million. And based on the actuals for FY13, it's just over 18 million. So that difference is approximately 3.9 million. And that was primarily driven by reductions in headcount. 70% of that is represented by wages and benefits. 18 for the custodial number of 1.2 million, we reduced custodial staff by 18, and then in transportation, the 1.5 million was mostly reflected in reductions with 20 bus drivers. This is a slide that talks about our staffing coverage that I had used to present to the Government Relations Committee with the Westerville Chamber, and was trying to come up with a clever way to demonstrate coverage in terms of how the typical community member could understand it, and we used that in terms of a homeowner. So for purposes of equivalency, we are using the average square foot of a home being 2,000 and the average lot size of a home being 1/4 of an acre. So when you do the math and the extrapolation, each of our building techs maintains approximately 160,000 square feet. So that's the equivalent of 80 2,000 square foot homes. In terms of each grounds tech, they maintain 69 acres. And when we include the 3 part-time employees and looking at it during mowing season, that's the equivalent of 41 lawns per day during mowing season, giving them 11 minutes per lawn per week. And then for custodians, they average cleaning 30,500 square feet, or the equivalency of 15 2,000 square foot homes a day, giving them 30 minutes per home per day. Just an update on where we stand with energy conservation. Back in November of 2013, Synergistic did present us with the Chairman's Sustainability Award for $10.4 million in savings over a 79-month period. And this was evaluated using third-party software. So it's not a claim that we've made. It's based on what the third-party software was reflecting based on the audit that Synergistics had performed. In addition, over the past 2 years, with the construction of some of our energy initiatives, we've received just over $74,000 in energy rebates from AEP as well as Westerville Electric. And then the Internoc Energy Demand Response Program that the board approved in April of 2013. And this is when the electric grid is in jeopardy. We are on call to help reduce consumption in lieu of a blackout or a brownout on the grid. And we have had one event since the board approval, and from that we received $35,593 with our participation. As part of the facility master plan, we had talked about buildings, property for disposition. Just to give you an update, there was a small block storage building at South that has been completed as part of the 5-year plan. We have completed the removal of the remaining modular classrooms in the district. There was 1 at Wilder and 2 at North. We're in the process of the 2 houses at 135 and 145 East Walnut Street. Board has approved that. The status is we're working on closing, but the buyer has having trouble with financing unless we put a driveway in. Not that we're going to put it in, but unless he puts a driveway into the White House, a bathtub for one of the restrooms at the White House, and some repair work in the foundation of the Yellow House that has been completed. So that's all in work. We're still a go. It's just taking a little longer based on these requirements of the lender. And then the last property that we've talked about is the warehouse annex. We had that appraised back in 2010 at $120,000. We're currently in the process of vacating the space. This is the property in Uptown that is a potential if the board so chooses. Looking at budget compliance for the FY14 capital improvements projects for last summer, the board, I had brought to the board bids totaling $2.3 million, and this is just an update on how we stood against what the board approved. We actually, in terms of change orders and the energy rebates, we collected back just over $111,000 against what the board had approved. So we budget based on what the Ohio School Facilities Commission recommends, which is 7% for change orders, but we've had a tremendous track record of not anywhere close to that. And this is an overall summary for the FY11, FY15 capital plan. At the start of the program, we identified approximately $65 million in needs. What is available to us over that 5-year plan was 57. So basically, we had to defer about $8 million in projects. Now, this is inclusive of, it's not just all construction work. This also includes buses, technology, and instructional materials. But as of Friday, the actual deferred amount based on our savings that we've generated has been 2.8 million versus the 7.7. So that's a deferral recovery of 4.9 million. In addition to that, we've done approximately $1.7 million of added work that was not in the 5-year plan, but was needed as we identified it over the past 4 years. And then there's a current balance of just over 1.2 million that I've yet to assign. So when you add all of that up, the total added value is just over 7.8 million against a deferral of 7.7. So we've made up the difference in 4 years and 1 year left, 1 year remaining. We did go through a process in 2011 where the FACT committee reviewed those expenditures, and that's a statement that was made. Rigorous construction management, improved bid procedures, savings on construction contingencies, and overall cost reductions drove the savings. These are the projects to be awarded for this summer, the FY15. Again, it's the last year of the 5-year plan. You can see the ones that were approved at the last board meeting. I have some additional ones to bring forth tonight. And then the last one, paving repairs, track renovation. The actual development of the scope of work will probably start next month after we get through the freeze-thaw season so that we have a better understanding of what the needs are in terms of pavement. This is our FY15 schedule. Basically, what I want to point out here is every summer it's an aggressive schedule. We get about 10 weeks to pull this off. So last day of class is May 23rd, so we turn it over to the contractors May 24th. And in the midst of that, there's all these summer activities that we're having to work around to complete the work. But the bottom line is we stress substantial completion a week before school starts, giving us a week to clean these areas. And then in September, it all starts over. That's when we start the design work for the following summer. So it's perpetual for us. And then I just wanted to highlight some of the projects that have been accomplished. You've seen some of these slides, but it's just sharing what we've done over the past 4 years. In terms of support structures, one of the buildings that was identified replacement was our salt shed. So this is, actually it's a larger salt shed. The prior salt shed was really in rough shape. So that was early in this 5-year plan. The transportation complex was extremely inadequate for our needs. It was built in a time when we had about 5 schools, so you can imagine the size of what we had versus what the need is. But that's a rendering of what was actually built. In terms of ADA committee recommendations, I meet regularly with an ADA committee to identify scope of work for the summer based on what they encounter during the school year. Typically what's provided to us is converting space for an ADA restroom. This is one we did last summer. This was at North High School. And then at the last board meeting, the board approved that we do an ADA restroom at Walnut Springs for this year. As part of the 5-year plan, we've renovated 3 of the wood shops. This one happens to be at Blendon, and it was converted to a special needs classroom. So the back area you see remained as storage. We did construct a special needs classroom with a restroom as well. Media center renovation, we did one. This is a before picture at Blendon, and this is an after. In terms of building envelope, we really focused this past 4 years on looking at windows, flashing details, bricks and mortar, a lot of work that was identified that we were able to accomplish in the front end of the 5-year plan. I had shared this at a previous meeting, but this is just an example of one of the retaining walls at Emerson that was leaning, and an after picture, again, the construction reflecting more of the time period and fits in with the design of the school. We've done window replacements at 3 locations, Longfellow, Emerson, and last year we did Hanby. This is a before photo. Doesn't really reflect the architecture of the time, but the new windows that, again, are reflecting the time period. And we've done that with every school, reflecting the time period when it was built. This is a project that we have, actually I'll bring that forth tonight. So it's part of the 5-year plan. It's replacing the windows at South High School that are single pane glass. So it's not every window, it's the single pane glass windows. This is one of the curtain walls that we are bringing forth tonight for replacement. This is another curtain wall that's adjacent to the stadium. We actually were picking up on that logo in the corner that says Go Cats. We typically like to provide inspiring environments or anything we can do to inspire students and staff. So we are looking at, this is a rendering of what we are proposing. So we've expanded on that Go Cats logo and have implemented a graphic. As part of the 5-year plan, a major one was the purchase of this building. 55,000 square feet, setting on 9 acres, purchased for just over $3 million due to being in receivership and working with the city of Westerville. This site can accommodate an additional 88,000 square feet if need be. We're actually working on signage for the front of the building. Now that the tenants have moved out, it's something that we need to address. So we're trying to reflect the spirit of what we built in the sign. So here you see where we had placed the sunroom, constructed the sunroom a couple summers ago. This past summer, the moon room that's reflected in the logo, and the 12 rays represent the 12 classrooms that were built. So that is the multi-purpose room that everyone's familiar with. Part of what we do in the design is we do really focus on that target audience, and this being preschoolers. We were looking to create environments that lower anxiety levels for students their first time entering into the program. We believe that lowering those anxiety levels will allow them to focus more on learning. And then we submitted to Learning by Design our design, and we received an outstanding project award during phase 1. And what's really cool is we always hope that we can influence other design in K-12. Not saying it happened, but it's kind of ironic that in 2011 we were an award winner, and this was the grand prize award winner in 2013. So I thought it was interesting that the slide came up with the clear canopy on it. And then 2, this was in Westerville News and Public Opinion in April of 2013. The Westerville Library team, when they were doing their new design, was inspired by Wester Village, located downstairs in the Early Learning Center. So again, we love to be mimicked. The Academic Enrichment Center. 2, we received Outstanding Project Award for the design by Learning by Design, as well as the Publishers Commendation Award. And then this was a statement from the Learning and Teaching Roadmap that was recently developed. Very few of our facilities were designed to enhance alternative instructional delivery activities, except the recently renovated, the recently renovated AEC is the exception. We'll take it. So that's the former AEC. Otherwise, that's where we're housing the EOS, the Educational Options for Success program. So when we acquired this building, when we relocated administration to the second floor of this building, it freed up the former administrative building that we had targeted to place that program in. And again, as we studied that particular age group, where are they hanging with their laptops? We were focused on coffee houses, Panera Bread, Starbucks. We were looking at those designs and how can we incorporate some of what they were doing in our building. So we knew we didn't want the typical classroom. This is more of an online learning program. This is just the entry going into the space. This is one of the 4 classrooms. So they're round. It's set up that the online learning occurs around the perimeter of the room. There is a teacher in the center that if they need instruction, they can spin around. That instructor is still there. And 2, if it's required more of that typical setting, all the students can turn around and it operates just like the current classrooms. Just another learning experience where you can pick up your laptop, whether it's working at the online station in the classroom or the cyber bar, grab a cup of coffee. But again, we wanted to provide more versatility for that learner. And this is what we love. The Columbus Dispatch actually came and interviewed students opening day, and this was a quote from Jack, one of the students. "This place is amazing. I feel important and I feel loved." Exactly what we were targeting. In terms of our athletic facilities, we've done a couple of replacements of tennis courts. This happens to be one at Central, which was not that old, but in terms of our aggressiveness with construction management, we didn't pay for this. So it was failing prematurely. We went back on the contractor, and they ended up replacing that tennis court. We do a lot of floor refinishing. This is one that was completed last year at North in the auxiliary gym, as well as painting the space. This was before of the south locker room. I don't know if you can see it, but back in the corner is the restroom that's exposed. So there's a urinal, there's a water closet, and this was the remodel. We actually built a restroom for this, which is behind the wall where the sinks are. Replaced 2 press boxes that occurred over the past year. We have installed field turf at all 3 stadiums. The savings that we are generating from the general funds by not having to cut the grass and fertilize, what we had calculated, Mr. Griffith is capturing and putting in a fund to go toward the replacement of these fields, as well as any rental that occurs on these fields. This is a before of the South Field House. This project was expanding the field house as well as creating a more inspiring environment going into it. We were working with the Paul Price Memorial Committee, who funded a majority of this project in tribute to their son. This is an after. And a plaque that in memory of Mr. Price. And then 2, we look at those outdoor learning environments. This is at this location. You typically see with playgrounds where we just pop a big toy in. We've explored more of the natural type of playgrounds. So you'll see the same components. They're just broken out. So, for example, you see the slides in the background that are integrated in with the hillside. In the foreground, you see the swings that really mesh well or harmonize well with the landscape. It included an outdoor learning area where we put in the amphitheater. And then, 2, another learning experience for students at the AEC was creation of a patio with the retaining walls so they can go out and take the laptops. And again, another opportunity to study in a different environment. This is a picture of the former land lab at North High School. Really rough shape, and had some environmental issues as well. And working with the science department at North, this is the new land lab. It has roll-up windows or the glass garage doors where you can be in class and you're actually bringing the outdoors in. That's just a view across from the pond. And then we're now starting to work on the development of the next 5-year plan, FY16 through FY20. And this breaks out those categories buildings and equipment, which is primarily what I'm dealing with, technology, instructional materials, buses, furniture. There are funds required to collect the taxes, and then we have financing charges where we're paying back the $25 million that we borrowed as part of this current 5-year plan. So for FY11, FY15, it's generated just under $14 million per year. And as we're starting to put together that FY16, FY20 plan, what we have to work with is the $9.09 million per year. Approximately $3 million of that is going toward financing. So what I've loaded in, what I've received in terms of transportation is provided a budget for buses as well as technology. But the highlight I wanted to make here, or what I wanted to point out, is that from a buildings and equipment standpoint, we had just over $7 million per year that's going into the capital program. And looking at the next 5 years, it's going to be more like $2 million per year. So it's going to be a challenge given our general fund resources as well as the capital funds. But with that being said, I really do want to thank the community for the support that they've provided in funding these projects. What we hope we've done is demonstrate, number one, strong fiscal accountability, as well as delivering a project on time and then creating environments that inspire learning. So thank you.
Questions, comments?
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it, yeah.
Any other comments from down here?
If I might.
No, I've known Jeff's done a great job for us, and we appreciate all the work you've done over the years, because certainly this reflects it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there, and I may have missed this, the warehouse annex, Winter Street, what are we thinking about for that? Is that, we don't know yet? Is that a building we want to do something with, but we're not sure?
It had been used as an annex for warehousing goods, and we recently acquired the distribution center as part of some of the riffing of employees, and we've revisited that. And what we have been working on is, why are we double handling a lot of these materials? So we can actually shrink warehouse needs by doing more direct ship programs. So we have done direct ship with office supplies. We had piloted copy paper. We're currently doing custodial supplies. So as we integrate more direct ship programs into our program, and two, it saves money, but it also creates less of a need for that warehouse space. So, and we're also looking at our records retention program, because there's one bay that's just dedicated to boxes of records. And as we move into scanning or digitizing, again, we can minimize the need for all this space. And we think that there's probably a better purpose served for that building in Uptown.
Thanks. It just really was just curious. The main, and you went through a lot of that. I don't know, are we allowed to get a copy of this slide? Can I get a copy of this presentation?
Sure.
Because I love a lot of it, and you went through a lot of numbers. But building techs, 160,000 per, custodians, 30.5. I'm just really pleased with my understanding, which is just beginning to comprehend the scope of our facilities. But I just love the fact that we're driving down some costs by being wiser with our energy dollars, for one. And I have some single-pane windows in my house. It's probably inappropriate of me to suggest that we throw a couple extra windows into this. Yeah, sorry, it's inappropriate. But I have some single-pane windows, and I know what they do. So they need to be replaced. Do you have any idea the percentage of single-pane windows at South right now? You got any idea?
I'm going to guesstimate, and this is just in the academic wings, maybe 35%.
Okay. Thanks. Great, thank you.
Sure.
Good stuff, very thorough.
Couple things that I wanted your opinion on. First of all, what is your opinion of the custodial coverage? I think we are doing incredibly good work getting the coverage that we have, but do you feel that the custodial coverage of the buildings is sufficient?
I have gotten feedback. A reduction of 18 custodians has certainly taken its toll on the cleanliness of the buildings. So I know that when that was first implemented, we started to get feedback from staff as well as parents in reference to that.
I've heard a number of those as well, and it does concern me.
And
I
keep
know
in
we're doing
mind-
as best we can with it,
Yeah.
but that is something that concerns me as we look to the future and what we want to
Yeah,
do.
two, there's also a difference I'd like to point out between housekeeping that's referenced more in the private sector versus custodial. Custodial does more than just clean the buildings. We see them as our first line of defense in maintaining the buildings. So it's not just cleaning the buildings, it's also doing some of the day-to-day maintenance. When we need the specialty team, that's when we call in the facilities team. But these buildings, the average age of our schools is 46 years old. Bart and I actually met with the Ohio School Facilities Commission last week, and I had asked them the question, what do you recommend for building replacement? They said 50 years. So it was interesting because, again, as ours are approaching 46, the point I'm making is they require a lot of maintenance as they age.
Don't we all? A couple other things. I also, Rick, following up on your question about the property on the alley, which actually sits right behind my house, so I'm very familiar with that piece of property. And I watch it for you, by the way, so nobody breaks in. There's a little graffiti on it. I'm
Done
sorry I
well,
missed
so
the
thank
people
you.
who did that. But I also want us to be thinking about the proper use for that building, whether it is with us or whether it is with someone else. Obviously, if the world were a perfect place, we could turn that into a design lab or some form of public-private partnership around arts and design and so forth. But it will require us to look at it and see what the most appropriate fit is for that building. But it has been great to see the piles of boxes disappearing from it as it gets ready for whatever the next phase is on it. I want to commend you for the change orders. That is really pretty phenomenal to come in under that 7% on change orders. That is excellent leadership management of those resources, and I want to commend you for that. I also wanted to echo what you said, the thanks to the community. We have been remarkably blessed in this community for many years now to have had the renewal every 5 years of the capital improvements, the permanent improvements levy. That has let us maintain our buildings and protect the investment that the community has in those buildings in ways that many districts have not been able to do, which is why we are able to talk about how we're going to use Hanby and how we're going to use Emerson and what we want to do with all of those buildings. So it is a remarkably important piece that sometimes gets overlooked when we spend, as we should, a lot of time talking about the academic program, which obviously is key. We can't talk about that unless we have the structural capacity to deal with what needs to be done for our students. So whether it's the appropriate and energy-efficient windows at Hanby, whether it is the alternative delivery system that we see at the AEC, this is the public's investment, so kudos to the public for recognizing that, and kudos to you for your leadership and to your team for the management of the projects that go forward there. Thank you. Anything else for Jeff? John, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, I've said it before, but just the takeaways for me, Jeff and his department have done a great job of finding ways to have cost savings and create efficiencies, given and stretching their resources about as thin as you could hope. And there's always that fine line between what's too far. The second piece of that, as you see from the pictures, his department, their commitment to quality and their understanding of their relationship to the whole learning environment piece. Jeff speaks about it with great passion. You see it in the design of what he does for kids and making that connection, and that's real powerful. And then that third piece is, we're starting to examine what the impact of some of the pieces of Jeff's department are on families, and one that's separate from the facilities but under his umbrella is this whole issue of transportation. We've talked about it a little bit, and the cutback on services there that we've had for families, and we're starting to examine that to see if there aren't ways to turn some of these efficiencies around and put us in a better position with transportation for our families too. So he's bright, he's got a bright department, and they're very aggressive about creating those things, so we appreciate that.
Very much so. Thank you, Jeff. Moving on the agenda to item 6, public comments. This, as I mentioned, is the first portion of public comments, and public comments are, in this portion, devoted to items that are on the agenda. At this point in time, there are no individuals signed up to speak, so we will move on to item 7, financial. 7.01 is a resolution to approve the financial report and investments of January 2014, listing all funds ending January 2014. Could I have a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, I'll turn this over to the treasurer.
Madam President, members of the board, this is for the January 2014 fiscal year to date. Year-to-date receipts are $106,923,000. This is for general fund only right now. The year-to-date expenditures are $78,303,000. Ending cash balance right now is $45,580,000. When you look at all funds, year-to-date receipts are $139,067,000. Year-to-date expenditures are $110,667,000. We have an ending cash balance of $64,083,000.
Comments or questions regarding this item? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
French?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes, the resolution to approve the financial report and investments for January has been approved. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, 7.02. This is to consider the acceptance of the amounts and rates for tax year 2014, collection year 2015, as determined by the Budget Commission. So could I have a motion on accepting the amounts and rates, please?
So moved.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, I will also ask Mr. Griffiths if he would talk about this.
Madam President, members of the board, this is an annual event which we typically bring either February or March of every year. When the county does an update to all of their evaluations, they always make sure that basically, by House Bill 920, your taxes can never be more than what was originally voted. So when they look at the valuations, any new evaluations, they go through and they basically update their millage and the valuation amounts, which then correspond to what we collect. This is actually for calendar year 15, but this is just the amounts and rates that are prepared by the Franklin County Auditor's Office that we basically have to approve for them, and then we'll send it back. So it's nothing I prepare, it's what they prepare.
Do we get that for the Delaware County eventually too, or did
Well,
we already do that?
Franklin County, because they're basically considered the
we are-
majority, we get it from one county office. I will tell you that the property valuations, for the most part right now, are almost a 50-50 split between Delaware County and Franklin County. So that end is growing. But still, as of right now, Franklin County is the county of record for us, which we send all correspondence to, and then they will share with Franklin County. But this includes both counties. This is the entire school
Oh, they
district.
share with Delaware?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? This is a pro forma necessity, quite frankly. And with that, Mr. Griffith, would you call the roll on the pro forma necessity?
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes, the resolution or the acceptance of the amounts and rates has been approved. 7.03 is to approve amended appropriations for fiscal year 2014. Could I have a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Thank you. The motion and a second. I will also turn this over to the treasurer.
Madam President, members of the board, this is sort of also an annual event which we create. We do the appropriations typically in 2 readings in June of each year. We typically, at this time of year, we get additional money or we get decreased money from state and federal programs. So we typically try to do a sort of a cleanup on our end for now. We will bring the final appropriations, any changes that we'll do back in June of this year. But this is sort of a mid-year change that we need to do to update our appropriations that we were approved to spend within, like I said, due to either increased or decreased funding. Each of these funds are itemized on the left side. These funds are specifically strictly their own funds. It's nothing that we transfer from the general fund to make sure these, this is all, in other words, if it's 516 fund federal money, it's a change in 516 federal money. The general fund doesn't pay or change anything in here. And there's actually nothing on this form that we're asking for general fund change now. This is mainly anywhere from 018, which is principal's account, 300, which are student activity accounts, state and federal grants. We have nothing in bond retirement. There is some food service money in here. One of the things that they want to do is I think they're going to present later on, but they want to do some construction, some updates to some of their facilities. So they're asking to increase the appropriations so that they can do that. That's in the 006 funds. The self-funded insurance, if you wonder why we're adding $1 million to there, this is the first fiscal year in which the 024 fund will pay all of the medical expenses because we are self-funded. This is the first full year that we're self-funded. So when we started this year, we estimated about $14 million. We're asking to increase this to $15 million. I think in the past, we were spending somewhere around $16 million because in the calendar year of last year, in calendar year 13, we actually saved $2.2 million by being self-funded. So this, again, we just estimated $14 million in the 024 fund starting out. The first half of this fiscal year, which was the last half of the calendar year, we actually spent about $8 million. So if you duplicate that, that's $16 million. But keep in mind, because we were in the last half of the calendar year, most people had met their deductibles prior, so the board was actually paying more. So we basically are estimating that we're going to be somewhere around $15 million. That's why we asked for the extra million to be added to the appropriations here. If we don't need it, we won't spend it. We just want to make sure we're there. And again, we'll bring these back to the board in May to do what we call final appropriations for this fiscal year.
The one you were just talking, am I allowed to ask a question
Yes,
now?
yes.
The one you were just talking about is the 024, right?
Yes, sir.
And is that, do we combine those two there? You see what I'm looking at?
Well, the first line you see is the appropriations as of September 9, 2013.
Yeah.
And then the other column in blue is well, mine's blue, yours isn't. The other column is the change that we're asking to change. So some of those lines either increase or decrease. It's still within the same fiscal year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Pretty straightforward, Bart. Thank you. Would you call the roll?
Dr. French,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes, the amended appropriations have been approved. We'll be moving on to the personnel consent agenda for the evening. This is item number 8 on your agenda, and there are a number of items listed on the consent calendar tonight. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, there are a number of important things on this particular consent agenda. You'll notice that we all have on butterflies, and we thank very much WESA members for bringing those butterflies to us tonight. They are in recognition of an individual who is on the consent calendar tonight. Kirsten Elliott left us far too soon, and her funeral was this morning. Thank you. There are some other pieces that are bittersweet. There are some retirements on here that, as retirements usually do, will be great losses to the district. They will take with them, I hope, many happy memories, and hopefully a lot of the students that they worked with will have equally happy memories. There are some remarkable educators listed and some grand classified staff altogether. We're looking at just under 200 years of experience that will be retiring this year, or through this particular consent agenda. There will be a lot of other years yet to come. With that, I am wondering, let's see, Mr. Hershiser, are you filling in this evening?
Thank you. Mr. Jakowski is a little under the weather today, so thoughts are with him right now as he's working to get better and get back with us. As Dr. Nestor Baker indicated, on the agenda tonight is Kirsten Elliott. She passed on February 18th, and as Dr. Nestor Baker indicated, WESA is here tonight with butterflies in her memory. We also have the retirements. We have 2 bus drivers, 1 food service, 1 custodian, 1 administrator, and 3 certificated staff members that are retiring or who are retiring at the end of this year. And other than that, we do have some spring supplemental contracts on the agenda for spring sports. And with that, I recommend that the personnel consent calendar be approved.
Thank you, Mark. Are there comments or questions?
Maybe just really thank you all, those of you that are providing these and supporting not only Kirsten's family, but really the family at South and those that have known her. So just know that we take this to heart, that this is a powerful moment, and just know that our prayers or thoughts certainly will be with you all and with those at South and kids and staff that used to see her. And just know that we even talked before the meeting began that this was an important piece for us to pause and to be thoughtful, prayerful about. So,
Nancy?
South has suffered a great deal this year.
One other thing, I believe there's a memorial fund set up through Delaware County Bank in her honor and memory. So I know this goes out to TV and stuff like that too, so we want to make sure we let people understand that and know that if they want to make
Yes.
donations, they can go to any
Yeah.
Delaware County bank in her name.
for that reminder.
And I think they can also, according to what I read online, they can also take those and drop them off to the principal at South. And
Yes.
you'll make sure to take care of those as well. Anything else?
I too would like to say I'm sorry to the Elliott family and to the family at South. So,
Thank you, WESA members, for being here this evening. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
yes.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes, the personnel consent calendar has been approved. Item number 9 on the agenda this evening, excuse me, is the policy portion of the agenda. There is nothing on the agenda tonight. Number 10, recommended action for old business. We have none. Number 11, new business. We have none. It sounds like we might as well go home, but we do have quite a bit more to do, and we will have more old and new business yet to come. Number 12 on the agenda is recommended action standing business. 12.01 are the donations this evening. Could I have a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, are there any comments or questions regarding this evening's generous donations?
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks, yes.
Really, I think we'd all just, we don't want to take so much time, but really, for all the people that donate, and that's awesome. I don't know if any are here, and we don't, but thank you. This is huge, huge support.
Sometimes I wish I had a better word than just thanks, because it's so important what's done on behalf of the schools, on behalf of the children, on behalf of the community. Would you call the roll, please, Bart?
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes. The donations have been approved this evening. Moving on to 12.02, to a resolution to approve property and casualty insurance. Could I have a motion on the insurance, please?
So moved?
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, looks like Mr. LaRose has this one.
Got it. Thank you. Our current PNC insurance coverage expires on March 1st of this year with Lauterbach and Albert as our agent and Liberty Mutual as our insurance carrier. Coverage includes property, inland marine, which this is for items that are mobile, such as band uniforms, musical instruments, AV equipment. It includes general liability, auto, and crime. Proposals were solicited from agents representing 4 major carriers for school PNC insurance, Lauterbach and Albert representing Liberty Mutual, Andrew Insurance representing Right Risk Management, the Highland Group representing Affiliated FM, and Trident Argonaut. And Bauer Insurance was submitted to us by the Chamber representing multiple carriers. Coverage limits and deductibles are as summarized in Attachment A. The drivers, the drivers that determine insurance premiums are property values, the number of vehicles in the fleet, student population, claims history. Our average 5-year loss history is just over $131,000, and property losses nationwide. The lowest proposal was received from Andrew Insurance Associates in the amount of $309,732. This is $11,163 under last year's premium. Thus, it is being recommended that the board accept the property and casualty insurance coverage from Andrew Insurance Associates as presented for the policy period of March 1st, 2014 through March 1st, 2015.
Comments or questions? Although, do it quickly because we're about to run out of our insurance.
It's under because we did such a great job of watching things. They're not 11,000 under, you said?
11,000 under,
Yeah.
and what helped is our 5-year loss history has actually gone down.
Thank you.
The roll, please.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes. The resolution to approve property and casualty insurance has been approved. The next item on the agenda, 12.03, you heard Mr. LaRose reference this earlier. These are the summer 2014 capital improvements construction projects. And could I have a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. With a motion and a second, you might as well just have stayed at the podium.
Thank you. The scope of work for bid package 1A is the curtain wall, for that window wall replacement at South. Bid package 1B is for exterior door replacement at Emerson, Hanby, and South. And bid package 8 is for HVAC work at Hawthorne. We received 13 bids, 5 for curtain wall, 6 for exterior door, and 2 for HVAC. The bids were publicly read on February 19th, and the total of the lowest responsible bids is $1,275,867, and this is 22% under the engineer's estimate. The lowest responsible bid for the curtain wall replacement work and exterior door replacement work was submitted by 2K General Company as a combination bid in the amount of $1,211,500, including all alternates. American Architectural Glass, GHM, and Strong Tower withdrew their bids due to errors in quantifying the correct scope of work. The lowest responsible bid for HVAC work was submitted by ABM in the amount of $64,367. It is being recommended that the board accept the bids from 2K General and ABM as presented.
Comments or questions, please? I hear none. Bart, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes. The capital improvements construction projects for this summer bid packages 1A, 1B, and 8 have been approved. The next item on the agenda is our second portion of public comments, and also, as I mentioned earlier, these are comments for the good of the order, and speakers are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. We have 2 individuals signed up this evening. The first one is Dave Fitzpatrick.
Good evening, Madam President Nestor Baker. I think I said that right.
Long.
Yeah, board members and Dr. Kellogg. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and also congratulations, first board meeting I've been to since Ms. Davidson, Nestor Baker, and Mr. Velardo, you've been members, and again, congratulations and welcome to the board. First comment, as a public member, I would also like to express my appreciation for everything that Mr. LaRose does for the district. I can tell you I've been in his office before, and the guy has a passion like no one else for what he does, and it's just phenomenal. He is a tremendous asset. It's pretty slick. You can go in there and say, hey, Jeff, the first window northwest corner of Central College Elementary Building, can you tell me everything about that window? Boom, pulls out file. He can tell you the date that thing was installed, when it expires. It's phenomenal. Anyway, really appreciate it. In the For What It's Worth department, depending on what happens with the magnet schools, Central College Elementary in particular, I live in Fallen Timbers, which butts up to that school, and I know in the past the Ennis Woods Metro Park had some interest in that just because it would provide them an additional access to that park. So that's for what it's worth, throw it out there. I would like to say I appreciate having the board meetings filmed and now put on YouTube. I think that's great. Anything to help get this stuff out to the public is great. I wasn't able to make the meeting here a couple weeks ago, but I did watch it on YouTube. And I wanted to touch on your point, Mr. Velardo, when you're talking about the highlighting a school activity or presentation at the future board member or board meetings, maybe rotating them around. I know that used to be done in the past. Suggestion I'd make would be to maybe have once a quarter a meeting, maybe have a base area where you have your typical meetings, but then maybe once a meeting or once a quarter you rotate which school building to have a meeting. And I would offer up maybe having that school have some staff present 5 minutes, 10 minutes, needs. You know, we have these volunteer activities where we need folks to come in and do whatever. And again, maybe have the kids do whatever at the same time. And then too, if there's any way to involve civic associations, homeowners associations that may be in that area, to get them involved, get them to the meetings, and anything we can do to get the young folks involved. It would be great to see more attendance here. The last comments I have, I've spoke before in a corporate environment, and this is going to be probably the toughest thing I've ever had to say. And for me to get up here and say what I'm going to say, I want you to understand that this is not going to be easy for me to do. I wish Ms. Crow was here so I could speak to her directly and tell her how much I personally thank her for everything she has done for this district. I have not been on her side often, but I've learned a tremendous respect for anybody that comes in here and takes a public position. And I'm still learning. I mean, I've said some stupid things in the past, let me tell you. Not understanding how tough it is to sit up here and take some of the stuff you can take. I think that for years to come, she will be remembered for everything she's doing and the stuff that she is doing to open up the eyes to ALS and what a horrible, horrible disease it is, I think is very important. Also, to tie in with that, from last month's meeting, there was a couple weeks ago, board meeting, there was a discussion of governance team goals. And part of that was involving engaging the community, providing transparency, and as often as possible explaining decisions so that community and staff members will know what you're thinking. And I think that's very important. As folks that are in the district, I think it's important that we too have members on the board that can adhere to that. And it's, again, please take that into, I'm not saying somebody please resign, but I think it's very important to have a position and be able to fulfill it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Our second speaker this evening, and I apologize in advance because I am not going to say your last name correctly. Elizabeth Bouton? Bouton. I did. I put the French pronunciation on it. Bouton. Phonetically, I know your name, but it's nice to meet you.
I appreciate that, Madam President. Dr. Kellogg, board members, I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you tonight. And I'm probably not going to talk for very long because I wasn't planning on doing this earlier today, but I felt so moved. And I just want to tell you about two families, two paths. One family moved into the district from Maryland. They heard Westerville School District was a great district, ended up buying a house here. Didn't really know where they should buy their house, but they bought a house, and their preschooler finished preschool and went into kindergarten. The light of their life, their first child, if you remember your first child going into kindergarten. Well, the experience in kindergarten wasn't great. It was a great school, a great facility, great PTA. Just maybe the teacher, a little bit, maybe not the best learning environment for their bright little girl. They weren't quite happy. They tried to work things out, but maybe that school wasn't a good fit. What were they going to do? They weren't happy with that school. Should they move to a new district? Should they go to private school, homeschool? Hey, wait a minute. They heard about a choice that they had. They had a choice to try to enroll their daughter in a different school. She ended up getting into the magnet program and going into that school. It was a school of choice. Flourished there. The parents were happy. It was just a great situation for them. Another family moved into the district from Clintonville, not really too far away, but they too had heard Westerville Schools, fantastic. And they'd heard that there was school choice, that they knew families that went to the schools of choice. Families were really happy. They bought a house in Westerville. They also entered their kindergartner into school, and wasn't the best. It was a great school, but maybe wasn't the best learning environment for their child, who was very hungry, a very hungry learner. His needs weren't being fulfilled. He was very bright, tried to work with the teacher, just really not the best fit. What are they going to do? This is happening now. Well, they chose to open enroll into a different elementary school. It's not likely that they'll get in because a lot of schools are at capacity. Some of the schools that have a reputation are, people are starting to look at open enrolling there. What are they going to do if their bright, young, hungry learner does not get into that school? Well, they're already thinking homeschool, private school. Hey, New Albany's not too far away. I think a lot of us know families that have left the district, and I too watched the great YouTube video. It was really compelling, and I'm really happy that I got to see what happened at the last meeting and got to really listen to all of the words that were being said. But I guess I'm here, as you can tell, to talk about school choice and the need for school choice. I'm the first family. We stayed because of school choice. We were able to find a school that fit us. I volunteered hundreds of hours. I still volunteer in the district. That school melded me into a person that volunteers for the whole district. Most of the time, I'm not working with my kids. I'm working with other people's kids. I'm doing things to help other people in the district. And you want to keep those people here. We want to provide that. And I'm so excited to think about all the possibilities. I wish you luck. I know it's hard as you're going forward and trying to decide what to do. I know it's really difficult, but please consider not destroying what we have and building on that. And I'll be right there behind you. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Those are all the speakers signed up for this evening, which moves us to item 15 on the agenda, dates, times, and locations of our next meetings. The board is scheduled to meet on March the 10th and April the 14th at 6 o'clock here in the Early Learning Center. And the board is also going to be meeting for a special meeting on April the 28th, and this is for the GEM Awards. Oh, I skipped the board comments, didn't I? I'll talk to you about the meetings, and then I'll ask the board if they have any comments to make. We have the GEM Awards on April the 28th. That meeting begins at 7 o'clock with a reception for the honorees, those who are receiving the GEM Awards, at 6 o'clock. The awards ceremony will be held at North High School. With that, are there comments from the board tonight? You have to have some now that I went back to it.
I'll start if it's all right, since Dave, do I call you Mr. Fitzpatrick or Dave or sir? Thank you for coming forward. Thank you for sharing the Central College park interest. I don't know if we've explored that. I don't know if they still have interest. That's something to explore. Thank you. I love the idea of if we move the meetings around a little bit. let that school kind of highlight maybe what's going on with them that's exciting, but also maybe some of their needs. I think that's really cool. And the homeowners piece I hadn't thought of. Having family members who are losing their battle to multiple sclerosis, several family members. I understand the impact of these kinds of diseases, and the young woman who sits over there is a good human being. You don't have to be on her side on all the cases. We're on kind of the human side when you think about that. So thank you for. I'm sorry she couldn't hear that. I hope that she will YouTube watch it as well and be blessed by that. The transparency piece, dovetailing into Elizabeth's, Ms. Boughton's comments, school choice, et cetera, I think this is not the place to kind of rework all of that we did last meeting. I think we're working our way through. But I guess I would just say that whatever decisions we come to, they need to be explained well, and there needs to be time for the community to speak to any proposal that we might come up with. And as I indicated last time, school choice is really not coming. School choice is here, and we just have to be on the front end of trying to figure out how to. So Elizabeth, appreciate you speaking up, just kind of telling those two stories, those two families. There's a lot of stories out there. And the last thing I'd say, as Dave and Elizabeth were speaking, I thought, what's the point we're trying to get out of these students? What do we want them to sense, say, feel? And it goes back to Mr. LaRose's presentation and a quote from a student named Jack. As he was thinking about the Academic Enrichment Center, Jack said, according to the quote on the screen, "This place is amazing. I feel important. I feel loved." Well, other than excellent academics, that's my target. And the culture of the community in the school matters. So that'd be awesome to have a lot of kids say that.
Carol and Tracy, anything you'd like to add this evening?
I just want to say I appreciate the speakers that come each time, too, and both of you. And from a personal perspective, many of you do not know that my husband passed away with ALS about 11 years ago now. And so I'm quite familiar with it and understand it very well. I was a high school principal at the time that was diagnosed, and I quit immediately to stay home with him. But you know what? It is a personal thing with each person in terms of what you do with your time, your life, your future from then on. And it is so, so very difficult. And until they get things where there is a cure, we don't know how each of us will react. And in my case, I was so thankful that I did stay home. He only lived 4 months after the time he was diagnosed. Of course, he had it long before that, but wouldn't go to the doctor like most men, And so these things become very personal, and And it's a decision that Mrs. Crow has to make for herself. And it's very difficult, and we all know that, and she does, of course. Your brain continues to work until the very last thing. That's the last thing to go with ALS. So I thank you all for understanding and your appreciation, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, for your story. So on the bright side of things, we are having a fundraiser at Yabo's this Wednesday for Wenzel Crow winning the fight. And so if we want to help raise money for research so we can end this terrible disease, please come out and enjoy a taco, or 2, or 3, whatever.
When is that?
This Wednesday, so at Yabo's Tacos.
Lunch and dinner.
Yes, all day, 10% will go to Wenzel Crow winning the fight. Thank you again for these beautiful butterflies, and thank you to the speakers.
Thank you to everyone who came this evening. Thank you again to Wessa. Thank you to Kirsten. And also thank you to Cindy, who isn't with us this evening because she had some equipment issues. But Cindy, as she has all along, wanted to be sure that her views were put out there, that the board members understand where she is and what she's thinking, and also that her connections with the community remain as strong as ever. And she asked that I ask you, and those of us who will be watching us on YouTube and on WOCC, asked that if you have thoughts about Emerson and Hanby and Longfellow, particularly those 3 buildings, if you would feel free to let us know as we move forward in our discussions and as the superintendent shapes his plans. So Cindy continues to be a vitally connected member of the board, and we continue to find ways to make that connection as transparent as it possibly can be for all of you and all of us and for Cindy. With that in mind, I didn't leave anything else out this evening, did I? No. So we are headed for executive session, assuming the board makes a motion and a second and approves that motion. I would like the board to consider moving into executive session for one of the purposes allowed to us by law, which is the purpose of preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations with employees regarding their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. And our attorney will be with us this evening. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, Bart, would you call the roll for executive session?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes, the board will move into executive session, and we will adjourn immediately thereafter. Thank you.